Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on in to episode 20 of the Hour Zero podcast featuring our good friends Moontooth. Guys, how's it going? I'm going to bring you up on the Purdy screen, and you guys can unmute if you want to. And that's it. There it is.
What's going on? What's up, guys?
I'm the drummer of Mile Marker Zero, and those drums sound so good. I like the way they sound.
That's what happens when your drummer engineers your record.
That's it.
Nice.
And that's also what happens when you don't use Apple earphones, apparently. So, yeah. Anyway.
So, guys, what's going on?
Not much. Happy Friday.
Yeah, it's Friday. We're a little out of step. We've been doing this on Mondays, and because of calendars and obviously with the holiday this past week, we decided to jump on a Friday. So, thanks for everyone jumping in to talk to Moontooth and the guys. I'm here with Jake. What's up, Jake?
Hello.
Bass player of the band, Mile Marker Zero, and Doug, who you heard, who's a phantom and won't be on screen today. He's just going to host on the technical side. And we're joined by John and Nick from Moontooth. John, lead vocalist and frontman extraordinaire, and Nick, the king of the high watt, turned up way too loud. The reason why I fell in love with the band out of the gate, I'll be honest with you. So a little bit about Moontooth, right? Guys are from Long Island. I actually said when we were kind of like just kind of shooting the shit before the show, I was like, I remember hearing you guys. I mean, I had heard your stuff and I liked it, but when I saw you guys play at the Space when we played together with Thank You Scientists, there was like a visceral like sound that the band had that I was like, wow. And it's the first time, and I actually mean this in all sincerity, and I told John I would go a little hardcore on this, but it's the first time in a really long time that I literally walked out of the room to go get people, and I was like, dude, and I remember exactly what I said, and I only remember you played a high watt because I said that. I walked in, I was like, yo, there's this kid blasting the fuck out of a high watt in the other room, and they are ripping this place apart. And, you know, again, seeing lots of bands, that made an impression on me, and I was like, yo, I got to keep track of these guys. So I've obviously checked out the records. I mean, outside the acoustic stuff, the most recent record from last year, right, March, I think, of 2019, the Crux album, and that's the tune that we played in on Trust, right? That was a lead track on that album, right?
Yep.
So what I thought we might do is let's start and work backwards. So let's start with that record. I know you've got the acoustic disc that came out right this year, but let's start with the first like full-length record, Crux, and because you're still kind of running off that steam, I would imagine, right? Everything, is that kind of safe to say? That's the main record. So let's start with that record and what that was like making that, and kind of move backwards in time, and then we can get up to where we are. So tell us about that record and like how that came to be, and you know who worked on it. You said your drummer produced the record, so let's talk about that.
You want me to take this one, John, or you got it?
Yeah, sure. It's actually our second full length though. This was kind of the one that everybody.
Chroma Paragon's the first one, right?
The first full length, and then Crux was the second one. But I'm sure a lot of more people found us through Crux than the first one. But
so when did you guys record that like yourselves, or did you go to because you said your drummer was involved in the process? So how'd that work out?
Yeah, it's a little convoluted, so just bear with me for a second. We had started writing that record in 2017, 2018. And then I guess really just in 2017, we had most of it written. And then we were on tour with a band called Fit for an Autopsy and Tombs. And while we were on that tour, we got a call that the producer, Machine, who we really looked up to from his work in like Clutch's Blast Tyrant and Lamb of God's Ashes of the Wake, he had caught wind of the band and was into it. And he wanted to work with us. He brought Mark Morton from Lamb of God in to do pre-production with us, and it just kind of snowballed into this crazy scenario. Long story short, like we, for no personal reasons, logistics and just things not like fitting together time-wise, we ended up only doing pre-production with them, and then we tracked the record at our drummer's studio, Westfall Recording Company, here on Long Island, and he mixed and mastered it himself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was a plan for Machine to do it, but then the the timing and logistics of it just did not end up working out, and Ray ended up doing it. But we're really stoked that Ray did it. I mean, he's a massive talent as an engineer, and like, you know, it was just like we didn't necessarily want someone else to produce or mix it from the get-go, but you know, when that opportunity came and we already like really looked up to Machine, and not to mention Mark, when he brought Mark in, it was like pretty wild. So we just had to follow that path that opened up, you know.
How far into pre-pro did you get with them? Well, did you have the sounds designed already, or was it just maybe like song formats?
No,
or
it was mostly just going through the material and
material.
Some of the stuff was like finished for a long time, and some of the stuff was just a riff or two, and they were just sort of like kind of shooting ideas at us. And we were at Mark's in Richmond, Virginia for a week right after Christmas in 2000. Hey, Luke. He's like, don't tell the story again. But yeah, so we spent a week with them and just worked like literal 12-hour days, like for a week straight, and just poured through all the material and fought and hugged and went through all the emotions that go with writing music.
Dude, pre-pro is crazy because it was every day. It was every day. We'd start at we'd wake up at 8, eat something really quickly, and then get cracking. And then really throughout the day, like if you were hungry for lunch and you didn't weren't currently doing something, you'd run up, because it was at Mark Morton's house, and he has this 2-story garage, and the top floor is like a home studio kind of thing. So we just scurry off to his house, make a turkey sandwich really quick, and run right back. And then we'd keep going. We'd have dinner at maybe 7 or something, and keep going, and then wrap every day at 2 a.m. And it was that the day after Christmas for 5 days or however long it was. It was fucking insane.
That's
it
insane.
was more grueling than touring, honestly.
Yeah,
That's
it was
really
trying to fit in their busy schedules with the Moontooth pre-pro, So it was important that we got it in when we could, because we might not have gotten another chance to do it.
There's now that you say that, you can kind of hear it a little bit in the way the songs are written. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean it in a good way, because it kind of has that fucking, this is it. And I'm serious, in a good way, take it or leave it, get the hell, listen or get out. And I think that maybe that's, I wasn't there, but maybe that's some of that kind of executive decision right now. Are we doing this part of the riff, or are we not doing this part of the riff? And make a decision right now, because we got to move on. Right. And I think, we've been talking ourselves about, because, Jake's out and we had said before, Jake's out in Portland, and we were we have so much somewhat material, 2.5 minutes of this, a bridge and chorus of that. And we were we should do a writing camp. Kind of you're doing a pre-pro camp where we go out and just crush for a week or two and just make something happen with what we've got, and then just take it home and finish it. Right. Or take it back to the studio and finish it. So it's interesting. Yeah. So were you showing up with did you have lyrics and stuff, or was that even part of the pre-pro?
Yeah. As Nick said, there was a good handful of stuff that had been written a long time ago. There's stuff that was written recently to us getting there, and there was stuff that was vague ideas, riffs, and some of the vague ideas exploded into songs on the spot, with Mark and Machine, which was really cool. Machine had a really cool process in general, but he would open up a session. Him and Ray would figure out the timing, time signature changes and everything, and then he'd write ask me about the lyrics and put bullet points in the side, which I thought was pretty cool. So he really kind of tried to soak in every song, and some of the stuff we stuck pretty close to what we had for the more fully structured songs. Some of the fully structured songs totally changed, and some of that early in the process was a fucking mental breakdown, especially on my part. But because we'd never worked with producers before, so we had a tough time. But especially myself, I got to take the blame, because that's just honestly what was happening. You see somebody these songs are your babies, and you see somebody grabbing your babies, and so there was a little bit of working through that, which was interesting. But all of it, kind of like you were saying, went into making it what it was. the tension and everything.
It doesn't sound at all like, it wasn't completed by that crew to me. Like you could have told me that they did the whole thing soup to nuts. I've been like, yeah, sounds killer. Right. So there's, as much as it would have probably been cool to like have them like, take it to the end, like, financially it was probably more advantageous to like, take it in house afterwards, but it was just like, it sounds killer.
We learned so much doing that, and like never been through that. Like I knew that for better or for worse, it was going to be an intense process, and that it was going to make us stronger as a unit. We were going to have to like, bleed a little bit for it, and like kind of, sacrifice some things that, you thought were like super special. You didn't want to let go of that riff rotation where the drums do that thing, and then, but like overall we just knew it was going to make us like more focused, and that's really what it did. And like I think like you were kind of commenting on, like there's an urgency in the songs that came from like the kind of like gritting your teeth and getting through, like making sure like, I don't know, you stay focused and like relentless about it, and like you fought for your ideas, but you tried to be graceful and and like work as a unit and all that. I mean, the whole from the writing of the record through all that process, through what we went through to actually record it and put it out, like was a very like emotional roller coaster that like we were very like defeated by the time that we were done with it. Like we were very like, we were still like, I don't know, like motivated and excited about it, but it was like the industry felt like it was chewing us up and spitting us out and just playing around with us like a cat would play with a toy or something. And, it just came like, we were trying to find a path in this industry. And then finally we're like, we were lucky to have our friends, Tom and Travis from Modern Static Records. We're just our friends that believed in us and wanted to start a label. And we were like, let's do it ourselves. Like, no more waiting around. No more like waiting for emails back and all this shit. Like we believe in this thing and we're going to prove it ourselves. And then everything since then has, we got on the upswing for a little while, which is, but it was a long downswing. Cause like we waited a long time to start the next record after the last full length. And, being in a band is the peaks and valleys. It's whether you're doing a lot or it's, or it's personally, it could go either way, but you guys know how it is. It's always ups and downs, good times, good years and weird years.
Well, it's an excellent piece. It came out really well. How much of it did you take from that camp to production? Did you feel like some of those fights that you had, now that they weren't there to sort of oversee it, did you kind of like sneak back in some of the stuff that was on the cutting room floor, or did you just follow the dream or follow their vision rather?
We kept everything that we did. I'm sure that we like joked about it, like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if we just totally threw out everything that we spent hours fighting over?
Right.
But no, I mean, at the end of the day, like, they were good choices. I remember like Mark and Machine, like saying things like, Mark had said like, like a year from now, you're not going to remember how you initially had it. And, they're saying things like that. And I'm just like, man, fuck you. But like, part of me like knew, I was like, motherfucker's right, Yeah. And like in hindsight, like I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't go back to it. There's nothing on there that I think should have been left alone. And some of this stuff, like the song Crux, which is the last track, there's like an epilogue track, but the last like big track on Crux, top track, was an entirely different song. And it came about so organically in there. I think like the chorus riff, Nick, I think you just started playing there for the first time, if I'm right. And like, it just turned into this thing. We got so much out of that, aside from like the lessons that the two of them were teaching us. And they're kind of saying like, oh, well, this should be a chorus instead. And you should do this 2 times. You should trim this. Aside from that, there was quite a few things that happened so organically just from like jamming that only would have happened there. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, just to be you put on the spot, right? Like Machine would be like, this part, you're fucking boring me, and it's just like, what if it was like this, you know what I mean? But like just being in that pressure was good for creativity. It kind of, just kept you on your toes the whole time. And he was pretty good with that,
Well,
getting
that's
in your
like,
face and stuff.
that's kind of like the feeling you get when I said like, visceral, like, take it or leave it. It's got that kind of like edge of your seat kind of feel to it. Kind of like, it's like, and you know what? You probably had sections that you probably wanted to double up on and play that riff twice because it felt really good. But doing it one time through gave you that edge of the seat because you were already on to the next thing.
Actually, it was more of the inverse of that. It was.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was more just like, yeah, dude, this sounds great. Do it 2 more times, and
That's yeah. And to your point though, John, too, when they say like, when he said, oh, you're not going to remember what these were originally like, a year from now. I don't know about you guys, but my Google Drive is full of everything. And I can go back and listen to, I've got everything, like to the point where it's, I go down memory lane sometimes and I'm like, and for our record, just for clarity for folks who might not know, like Jaco, Jake, produced our record and mixed our record and it was mastered.
Cool.
But so we've done the same thing. We went out, we shopped around, we tried to find somebody to work with. We got some pretty big name people. They even did a couple dry runs on mixing some things and it came back and we're like, nah, man, like I just don't get it. Like it's just, I don't want to put having your name on it's fantastic and everything, but like it's in 2020, that doesn't mean shit anymore. Maybe in certain capacities, but some of the guys we were talking to, it just didn't matter. But with that said, I remember Jake, doing that kind of stuff, being like, no, it should be like this. And me being like, all right, I guess we can let that slide. But yeah, going back, and listening to it to see the evolution of your material and stuff is kind of crazy. But speaking of that, so do you guys, other than working with, somebody outside the band, which I'm taking it that even though it was, a little bit teeth grinding, it was worth it. What do you feel was different about, cause like you said, there's like 2.5, 3 years between those records. So like between, Chroma Paragon and Crux. So like, what do you think like changed in the band? Like in terms of like the way you write tunes, because like it sounds to me like very in line with like what I would expect, but it does seem a little more cohesive as like a rock record than the first one did. But like, what do you guys think when you listen to the two of them and kind of compare where you were to where you went?
Well, I mean, if you actually like, if you go from our EP to Chroma Paragon, which was the first full length in 2016, and then Crux, like, the EP was sort of some songs that me and Ray had from our previous band that had broken up, and then they became Moontooth songs, and we were working through them, but there was like a bunch of material that I had written that we sort of just kind of like cut our teeth on. We just sort of got like used to playing each other on. And then we wrote Chroma Paragon, but we had never really written stuff like with someone that sings like John in mind before. So what you hear on Chroma Paragon is like me and Ray in particular trying to like out psycho each other on our instruments and then being like, here, John, good luck with that. And by the time we got to Crux, we started to realize like, his voice is such a important part of our personality as a band, and it's such a strength that we just started writing together more and with John in mind from, the vocals in mind from the beginning, and being like, here's a riff, John, like how many times would you want this to go around? You know what I mean? Like what, just the immediate conversation would be from like the ground up rather than being like, here's a song, like write vocals to it,
And there's, and first of all, for everybody, that EP's Freaks, if I remember correctly, right? Yeah. So Freaks is the EP that came out. That came out about like 8 years ago, I think, 7 years ago.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But I think maybe a good example of that kind of thing from a, not to say you guys sound anything like this, but it's kind of like that first Audio Slave record, like where it was kind of like, oh, this is just a rage track with Chris Cornell singing on it. You know what I'm saying? Like it kind of like it was awesome and it had a thing to it, but then you could kind of tell I'm not like a huge Audio Slave fan. I like the band, but you can kind of tell that they kind of started to kind of focus more on like, the band as
Chris.
Yeah, Chris, and just like, is this a good song? Is this not, not many people can write, drop D riffs in a blues style for their entire career and other than Tom Morello, but, writing tunes that he could kind of really sink his teeth into,
He sounds so fucking good on those records too. It's like
He does.
the pipes.
That first record, he sounds ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like
you could tell he was like had the fire lit under his ass again. But yeah, to what you were saying, it's like, we prog metal trying to out shop each other. We used to, me and Ray used to joke like death metal Van Halen. That used to be the joke. And we just started like we're not leaving any space for John, and that's sort of, you can kind of hear that on Chroma Paragon. He did an amazing job, and his response to that was like, I'm gonna out crazy all of you. So that's kind of what you're hearing on Chroma Paragon versus Crux. Where Crux, we were like, let's write a song,
Where on Long Island are you guys?
Nassau County.
Yeah, Nixon, Farmingdale. I'm in East Meadow.
What is it about that region, man? Like killer bands come out of that area. Because I used to, my entire like mid 20s was going out to all like the tent, like Envy on the Coast, Signal the Escape. Who else was out there? Neighbors, like so many bands, so many great bands, including yours. Like, what's in the water out there, man? That's like, is that the communities?
Yeah, lots of that.
Answer.
I think a part of it, comes from the fact that like, one, we're in the backyard of like one of the greatest cities in the world, and churning out some of the best music. So some of it's that, but really when you live on Long Island, like there is such a difference between Brooklyn and Long Island. You know what I mean? They're very much separate things. But more so, I don't know. I would imagine that like I feel like the coolest shit that we've experienced from like house shows and just killer bands, it's almost like there's, I don't know, Long Island's like a love-hate thing. Geographically, it's one of the most beautiful places in the country, but like there's cool things culturally in the nooks and crannies, but like culture is like snuffed the fuck out like so much, you know what I mean? It's a lot of sports bars, and it's a lot of 7-Elevens, and like and I think if you have an area like, and a lot of like clubs, and I think when you have something like that, it's going to there's always going to be like a punk rock reaction to that, meaning like, man, fuck these attitudes, fuck this like closed-minded like racist bullshit, like,
wow.
And there's going to be cool art that comes out of it. So like I think maybe that's part of it.
Well, it's killer, man. It's so much attitude. Almost every rock band that comes out of there is just so right on the money. In my opinion,
It's
Speaking
funny.
of which, I just wanted to mention quick, our friends Cryptodira put out a new EP today. They're from Long Island as well. They're from a bit out Suffolk County, east of Long Island. It's the same shit. But yeah, they put out an EP. It's fucking killer. They did an album with Jamie King, and they put out 2 songs as an EP from those sessions. It's really good. It's any prog metal weirdos, anything that under the sun. Like Converge meets Opeth meets
wow.
Between the Buried and Me or something like that. Yeah, like they're like right in the between all three of those.
Send me that, and we'll put it in the show note. Send me that, like on Facebook. I remember speaking of Long Island Band and Jake, right? Jake. You played that show. Yeah, you played that show with Moontooth, right? Right? Were you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course you did. Because that was like what, 2 years?
I didn't even remember I was there.
Well, I remember Jake was there because I said something, and
I'm new.
So
yeah.
just to be clear, right? I went to school for drums. I sing in the band. Jake went to school for drums. He plays bass and plays guitar. And Doug is the drummer in the band and went to school for drums. So we all kind of, and I remember saying something to Jake, and Jake goes, I'm sorry, what was your drummer's name? I forgot.
Ray.
Right, that's right. He was like, he goes, he plays like he's from Long Island. And no, seriously. And I agree, because I've always had a theory, and I don't know if this is, and Jake, I don't know if we talked about this, but like the pad hands, right? So because of the closer proximity of housing, right, in Long Island and things like that, a lot of drummers like build chops, like putting pads on a lot of the drums. Yeah. And that's why every Long Island drummer plays they are like, I can just tell, I can watch them, like everything is like full extension, everything.
I see what you're saying. So because your drums are always muted, you're like trying.
So they got their sound. Well, they got the headphones on, they're jamming, and they can't hear themselves, so they play harder to hear the pad.
Yeah,
and over the headphones. I mean, that's the story I've heard.
That's what I've heard too, and I'm pretty sure, because there are obviously there's that kind of metal, I don't want to say there's chops. There's a lot of chops in Long Island, like from what I've seen when it comes to drummers in particular. And then there's this just like level of like consistency that I see across like all the drummers that I've seen. And I think that that's more or less what I'm kind of leaning into. I don't know if they were from Doug. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember that band Ashes Are Nutritious? Were they from Long Island? Doug's not on the stream. I think they might have been from Jersey, but they had that same kind. You guys would have gone. They were a little more like a little more out than you guys are in terms of like getting down on the floor and like tweaking.
There's plenty of parallels between Jersey and Long Island.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm not a Jersey fan.
Well, it's a feel thing too. And I wanted to just to add on to already a belabored point, but it's a feel thing because it's the same thing. And Moon, you guys have it too. Your drummer's feel is just unreal, and that's what that's the difference. It's hard hitting, huge, and then also like this amazing pocket that really is like, how are you getting that pocket with that kind of motion? It's pretty. It's amazing to watch.
I really like the theory of the pad thing, but unfortunately with Ray, we've been playing together since we were like literally 12, and I have to tell you that like his parents were the parents that were like, no, you go ahead, play louder, and like
awesome.
He just is John Bonham meets Dave Lombardo meets Animal, and that's just who he is. It's funny when you see him now, he's like very like razor sharp focus, but like if you watch old Moontooth videos or whatever, like he's constantly like running around his drum kit and like
why not?
Yeah, like there's just like it's just part of his personality, and always hit really fucking hard.
Did you guys ever, growing up on the scene, did you have your favorite Long Island bands that you would go check out, just for reminiscing sakes?
Well, yeah, there was a venue called the Downtown in Farmingdale that like me and Ray and our friends, or his friend, partner at his studio, Anthony, when we played there was like an open mic that used to have like hundreds of people at it.
Holy
and we used
cow.
to wait in line, and they'd have like a couple stacks and like a drum kit set up, and you'd go up and you'd play 2 songs. And we have some humiliating recordings from that, from when we were like in middle school. But yeah, the Downtown used to have a pretty awesome scene. I don't know. I mean, none of these bands are around anymore. There was a band called Ballistic that used to open for like Suffocation and bands like that. Crazy death metal, old school death metal band. As far as like, I mean, Johnny Booth, who are still around, like I've been seeing them since I was in high school, and they were always like the cool hardcore band to me.
For sure.
They were always like the one that was like thoughtful and that you could talk to them. There wasn't like an elitist tough guy, like, I don't know if I have to talk to you or punch you right now kind of thing, where it's like Long Island, like tough guy hardcore was always like, oh, you guys are fucking lame. But those guys were always putting out really cool music, and they were always such cool dudes, and they've been going longer than Moontooth's been a band, and just keep getting better and better.
I liked reading your I'm sorry, what was going on? I liked reading your go ahead.
Oh, sorry you go ahead.
No, you go.
I was just gonna say there was a church that used to, like, a guy that ran a youth group at a church, and he was like a metal dude, and he used to set up these shows and stuff, and Calvary Lutheran Church, and they were like the place to fucking be, and it was a lot of like emo, hardcore, ska, and punk shows there, and so yeah, there was a lot of like Patent Pending is pretty big. I think they're still going.
Yeah.
And a lot of band. My cousin played in a band called Howard's Trousers, and they were like they were weird, like reggae, punk, hip hop kind of stuff mixed together. So that's earlier in Long Island when I was a little shithead. Those are the shows that I was going to, probably more than the hardcore stuff.
Right on.
Out there skanking up.
Hey, I played in a metal ska band. I played many shows on Long Island. In fact, Jake, we talked about this one night where we were saying how everybody in a band when they're touring starts out with like the beat, the regular drum kit, and then like after like 4 shows, it's like the kick, the snare, and like a handful of cymbals. Yeah. And it was Long Island where I was like, "Fuck this." I was like, because we were playing a basement show, and I was like, my shit's just gonna get destroyed. Anyway, it's just gonna get destroyed. So like, I might as well just bring a kick, floor tom, and snare, and just that was it. And like,
that's all you need.
My first few shows on Long Island were definitely ska shows. Like when I was in like 7th grade, and I met like my punk friends or whatever. I found my clique, and then I remember going to like see the Super Cools in the backyard.
That's
and
awesome.
then I saw them at the downtown with Arrogant Sons of Bitches, which was
nice. I used to play with those guys a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like they're definitely legacy Long Island for sure. I don't listen to ska anymore, but at the time I was so like just amazed by, wow, there are people my age that are putting shows on in their backyard.
Right on.
This is what I've been looking for my whole 13 years of life, or even less than that probably.
I had no idea that the ska scene was the way it was. I had never in my life really ever gone to a ska show. I knew some of the bands, but I never gone to a show. I never really cared. And when one day I got a call, my buddy was like, yo, you want to play in my ska band, play some drums? I was like, I don't really do ska. He's like, well, it's like metal, but like with horns. I was like, okay, yeah, we can do that. So I remember
riffs and stuff, sure.
Yeah, I mean, I remember showing up and like we were like playing some like VFW or something, and there were like 500 kids there. I was like, what the hell is this about? I was like, this exists? And that's like that because I was more of a venue kind of kid, right? We played like rock shows at venues. Like we didn't do like hall shows, VFW halls, basements, and it was just like it was so much more real, and it was like intoxicating. And I remember being like, this is for me. That was when I really
used to thrive here. That kind of thing. It was Center Reach VFW, and there was a few that
was
like,
there a
went for
firehouse?
a long time.
Was there a firehouse that did shows in upstairs in Long Island?
We played one in Belmore once, but it wasn't upstairs. But yeah, it was like you just have a group of kids in a community that like make shit happen. I hope that the kids are still doing that.
Well, yeah, it's weird. No, I mean, it's weird to think literally right across the sound, an hour and a half drive, you were, because we, grew up in Connecticut. It's such a different idea. I don't know what maybe our like parents, maybe just more controlling. Like we just did not hang out like that much. It was like the mall, the movies, home. The idea of going to hang out at any kind of show. I mean, I'm sure it existed. Don't get me wrong, but it just when I found out things were going on over there on Long Island, we were there almost every weekend. And it was always awesome. It was just always full of energy. Yeah. Anyway,
another thing
cool
about like those early Long Island shows, and to this day, was that something. Obviously, we weren't playing shows back then, but like just in the 7 years that we've been a band, almost 8 at this point. We've noticed a very different crowd on Long Island and in Brooklyn, and it's one of the things that like I'm proud of Long Island. There's not a lot, but that's one of those things that I'm proud of. It's the crowds and the music scene and everything, because like in Brooklyn, like we have such a great time, and it is like a home base for us. But something about like the Long Island crowd, just like they throw the fuck down. Like they don't think about like being cool or anything like that. They dance, they jump off of shit, they scream their hearts out. And it's like a good show in Long Island is like the whole room is performing the show rather than just like trying to win people over. But I mean, that's, for us, that's changed in years. I don't mean to speak ill of like Brooklyn crowds, just only mean to, speak well of like the Long Island kids and everything. It's like, they go fucking ham,
Yeah.
It's we felt that way. I felt that way, at least in like Philly. Like I kind of felt like in comparison to like being up in Connecticut, like going, well, obviously anything's kind of in a different scenario than Connecticut, but like going into Philly, it was kind of like, wow, like, even in Jersey, like we, we'd be like touring around, we'd show up and some kids would be outside. They'd be like, oh, where are you guys from? Be like, oh, we're from up in Connecticut. Like, no problem. I'll be back in 2 hours. I'm gonna go get my friends. I'm like, really? Seriously?
Philly crowd's great.
It was just it was almost like, okay, awesome. And like they didn't mess around. There's only a few places where I felt that way. The other place I felt that way, I imagine you guys playing around might have played in Georgia, but there was a place in Georgia, I think, that closed called Swayze's. It was in Marietta, and the entire place was dedicated to Patrick Swayze. And it was like that, where like it was just like you didn't have to try. Like they gave you what you needed. Like the crowd just gave you what you needed and just ate it up. And maybe that's a good question. Like, do you guys have any venues that you've played where you've just been like, this is a spot I remember. I'm gonna come back to. Have you had any of those spots?
Yeah, I'm definitely. Well, that's another fascinating thing about touring. Aside from the fact that like you're learning so much about like the culture of an area, which is great, you get to taste it a little bit. You can't, obviously there's not time enough to really explore, but seeing how the people act at a show is really telling of any particular music scene. But absolutely, Philly, like you said, always great crowds in Philly. It was interesting. Chicago, I remember the first couple times we played Chicago, I felt like we were like fighting to win them over every time. And after like several visits, like Chicago is one of my favorite places to play. I love the city, but like the crowds are fucking great.
Reggie's
Awesome.
Reggie's is always like a good show and an interesting challenge, especially when we play the smaller. You know, it's always like some adversity, but they're always like great shows, and I always look forward to going back there.
We play this one show and like, and you never know what you're gonna fucking get, because I remember we were playing in Houston, Texas. I forget the name of the place, but it was like I don't know if you remember this, Nick, but like it was a record store / venue, and it was a big room. I think that was on the Fit for an Autopsy tour.
Yeah, it was.
And
What the fuck was that place called?
but I remember
Walters.
Like, Walters, okay, awesome fucking venue. They had a like cool taco truck outside, really cool. I found a vinyl of Desert Sessions Volume 5 and 6, which I'd never even seen a physical copy of a CD, let alone a record. So I got that, and but I remember thinking like that whole night, like the crowd is throwing down and throwing their fists and stuff, and it's like we were playing with Fit for an Autopsy and Tombs, and I'm up there shaking my ass and singing and doing falsettos, and I'm like, they're gonna hate us, and I was like burnt out from the road, a little sick, and I was just like, I just got to get through this set. But as soon as we started playing, the crowd just went ape shit, and it was one of the best shows of that tour. So it's like it's fascinating sometimes, like
Awesome.
how open a crowd or a scene could be, you know.
Definitely always look forward to going to Atlanta. Always look forward to going to like Raleigh, North Carolina, or like surrounding areas in North Carolina. And definitely always look forward to going to like Austin and Houston.
Where in Austin did you guys play? Do you remember?
We've played Come and Take It Live a bunch of times now. That venue is gorgeous. It's a beautiful venue.
Great spot, yeah.
You know, in South by years ago, we played the Dirty Dog, which was a sick venue. We haven't been back
South by
there
Southwest,
since
2015.
Yeah, 2015, and then and a couple other places along the way. But just like always meet cool bands, always kind of get along well with people there. But yeah, I'd say North Carolina, Atlanta, Chicago are like kind of our homes away from home.
I gotta also mention sometimes like college towns, like I had never heard of Lawrence, Kansas or Lincoln, Nebraska before we were there, but those places were some of the best shows we've had and like some of the most fun we've ever had.
Lawrence is really cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this. When it comes to, because I always find this interesting, do you guys have like a couple bands that you all agree on or kind of look at as like, you know, inspiration for what you do in terms of like, you know, like maybe, you know, like I love Tool. Like growing up, I was like a huge Tool kid. I'm a huge Danny Carey fan. So like, it's obvious, like when I write certain types of tunes that's kind of what I'm inspired by. Do you guys have like a unifying band or two that you all agree on? We don't have that in our band, PS. We have like maybe a couple that like maybe we can tolerate. But
it's
like,
interesting. Like me and John are like the Tool guys. You know, the other guys like Tool, but we can go in depth about it or whatever. Like we definitely share bands, but it's rare that there's not too many that we can say everybody's like, yeah, 100% all the way, knows everything about that band. I don't know, John, do you think, can you name one?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I got to say that Danny Carey it's tied between like Danny Carey and John Bonham as my favorite drummers. So it's funny that you were talking about I met Nick playing drums in another band. I played drums with him in another band for a while.
dude, Nick, you don't play drums. What the fuck?
Suck at drums.
Nick does play drums. You can play drums.
I can play drums. I can play everything that is involved with the kick and the snare and the hi-hat.
Okay.
I don't need the rest
need.
of the drum kit.
That's all you need, dude. You could be in like most bands these days. You're good. Start a band.
Yeah, Danny Carey's he paints portraits on the kit. That's one of the reasons why I love Tool. But you know, the thing is like the four of us we're like quadruple Venn diagram. I'm sure there's an actual name for that specific diagram, but of bands that we like, and it speaks to what our music sounds like. But like Nick and Ray, they like kind of grew up together, so they definitely have like their bands like Pantera and Metallica and everything, like more of the heavy stuff. And I liked heavier stuff somewhat. Like Tool is one of my bands, and but I like a lot of different things. But we all kind of get down. Like if someone like if we're in the van and someone's like, oh hey, check this out, and they put on like an R&B record or a funk record or a hip hop record, everybody's usually going to be like, oh, this is fucking cool, and so there's a lot of connections with what we a lot of differences. I don't know. Maybe I would say it's equal differences and equal connections between what we all kind of were, getting influence on.
We've influenced each other over the last 7 years or 10 years or however long. But yeah, me and Ray, like growing up, it was like as soon as we met each other, it was like, you like Metallica too? All right, we're friends. And you play drums and I play guitar? All right, we're friends. And then it was like, okay, Slayer and Pantera and whatever, and then just went through everything really together, where it was like discovering like whatever Cannibal Corpse and Morbid Angel and Napalm Death, and then on the others like Weed Eater and like Sleep, and like we just like digging through everything we could find for a long time. Just like how gross and like weird, or like how slow or how fast or how gross can you make this music, but then also really bonding over like Jeff Buckley and Radiohead to an extent, like things that were not metal. Like it definitely took a turn at a certain point, and we were just like, all right, what else is there?
Well, you're speaking my language, because first of all, let's say this: I think that Grace is one of the best albums ever made.
Yeah,
period.
That's a huge one.
I think my favorite live album ever made is 101 Proof. Ironically, speaking of Pantera, that record rips. That performance rips. And then obviously, like I think that I'm one of those kids that just thinks that Radiohead really doesn't do anything bad. Like, I mean, it's weird because I feel that way, but I don't go for it a lot. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like sometimes if I'm going to grab something, I might grab, I'll grab OK Computer or Kid A, or what was that newer one? Oh God.
Rainbow?
That one's great. Actually, I don't want to go down this route. They're all great, right? Yeah. Kind of my point. But like, I feel like, I do reach for Jeff Buckley a lot. I mean, obviously being songwriter, singer, like, he's got a special place, in my inspiration. But you can hear it in the Moontooth records that you guys have a very diverse kind of personality individually. And it definitely comes out. And I notice it. It's very like unique. There's a lot of, and I don't want to take away. I don't want to take away from other bands that do similar, like aggro, more progressively minded metal stuff. But there is definitely something that is like, and I'm really not trying to blow smoke up anybody's ass because people are going to think I'm like a super fanboy, but like you literally do like some things that I find very like a lot of curveballs in the way that the riffs are written and the way that the tunes are put together. And to me, like, that's what I look for, right? There's plenty of groups that are playing in C and like can just throw down crazy shit. And like, that's great and all, but there's something to be said for the little itty bitty tings, whether it's like, some of the harmonic stuff that you do, Nick, and it's very unique for the genre, I will say. And then vocally, obviously, it's no one's doing what you're doing, John. Right?
Well, thank you.
It's awesome. That's it is a sincere compliment, and I don't really blow smoke on the call a lot, but
I think an interesting comment to make on that is like we're talking about Radiohead and Jeff Buckley. Like one of the reasons we love bands like that, and why I'm on the same page with you with Radiohead. Like I feel the same way. I think even if I'm not like, oh yeah, I'm going so hard for this, like I think like, oh wow, this is really interesting and cool. And one of the reasons why they have the career that they've had is because they're clearly, I think a good musician, a good artist, let's put it that way, is an explorer. You know what I mean? They're not like, just like, oh, we got this sound. All right, let's ride this out for another 3 albums or so and make some money. You know what I mean? Like that's the shit that moves us. And I think that's why we write what we do. And it's not, you know what I mean? Every now and again, if like, I think any one of us on our own, if we're like writing something, like maybe every now and again, the thought will come in like, let me try to something wild and different here. That doesn't happen so much. A lot of the times it's more of just shit that just naturally comes out. Like, you know, like Nick will come up with the riff and like put it in like the little Google Drive thing we have, and like the songs will form quickly, and whatever comes out comes out. And I think those are my favorite artists that, you know, I've talked about this before. I forget who said it, but I think at some point Fiona Apple said it, but she might have been, I think she was quoting somebody else, but you're holding up, you know, the God antenna, you know, you're just waiting there for lightning to strike, and it does what it wants to. And if you're a good artist or musician, you let it happen as it will. And it's almost like, you can feel like when you're getting off of the thing, you know what I mean? Like if you're driving off the side of the road and you feel the bumps of the side of the road, you know, like, okay, no, something's not right. Let's get back on track here and obey that true smooth pavement. You know what I mean? And I think those are the best artists. Jeff Buckley's a great example of that. Like people think of Jeff Buckley, and obviously you think about his voice and the soul to it. But I mean, you know, even on Grace, like in a lot of his songs, like shit got so fucking heavy and like interesting and weird. And
yeah, like Dream Brother rocks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like he can play guitar. Like he writes some cool, like some very just tasty stuff. And by the way, you nailed it again. Like Fiona Apple's like another one of my huge favorites. Like I think that When the Pawn and the second record are unbelievable. She just put out a record.
When the Pawn is the second record. Title's the first one.
No, Title. Sorry. Title. Yeah. I love
Title.
Title. I think the tunes on there are killer. The production on Title and When the Pawn are off the chart great.
Look at that.
Some of When the Pawn was recorded in Westport.
Really?
Fun fact. Yeah.
I did not know.
Present studio on what do you got?
Sorry.
No. I was waiting for you to come back.
But I can't help it. Like they just printed When the Pawn on vinyl, I think for the first time, and I got a copy for myself and my sister for her birthday.
That's awesome.
So fucking good.
She's another one that I mean, I'm just like, she's dope. Like everything she does is super cool, and you know, she just owns it, and she was way ahead of her time.
She's not putting herself in a cage, but yeah.
Yeah,
so, Go ahead, Jay.
No, just echoing agreement.
So let's do this because we got like 10 minutes or so left. Let's talk about what's going on with the band. So, you know, we have an acoustic, you know, EP that came out, right? We've got an acoustic performance coming in a couple weeks here in September. Why don't you take us through those things, and then anything you can tell us about maybe like what's going on with like another record or another EP coming out?
Yeah. So a couple months ago, we put out the Violent Grief, which is our first ever like acoustic EP. We took 4 songs from Crux and reimagined them acoustically. And we put one new song on there, which is called Six of Swords. It was originally it's an idea that we've been floating back and forth for a really long time. And just like, we can do acoustic music really well. And John's voice lends itself really nicely to that format. And we were going to do this tour with Caligula's Horse back in May before COVID hit. That was like the next big tour. It was like 4 weeks, you know, US and Canada. It was a haul, but we were really stoked for it. In order to sort of like get something new out, and it's like our first real like official like Pure Noise Records. We signed with Pure Noise. They re-released Crux and they reissued Crux, and then you know they wanted something kind of new out there for this tour. So we were gonna like, all right, let's do this EP. It'll be digital only, but you know it'll be something fun. There'll be a new song on there, and we'll promote the tour with it. Fast forward a couple months, we're almost done with it, and COVID hits, and instead of like trying to wait it out for the tour, it just became more like, well, maybe we'll do vinyl, and there'll be a physical product we could focus on, and we could put out something very cool and unique, you know, that also physically, visually. It was supposed to, like, in our heads, I think, or at least in my head, when we decided to do it, I was like, yeah, cool. We'll just play the songs on acoustic guitar. It'll be in and out in no time. But, like, what ended up happening was that I was like, you know, okay, drop A kind of sounds like butt on an acoustic guitar. Like maybe we should move the key. And then like, so that, you know, it just sort of like kind of, I mean, you might not hear that on every song, but there was like a lot of fine tuning. Where can I play this chord on this acoustic guitar so that it's going to sound nice? Or what do I have to move keys? What do I have to move down octaves? And then the actual tracking of it, let alone the preparation for doing it live, was like pretty like nail biting, and just like, cause there's no forgiveness on an acoustic guitar, obviously.
Right now.
But it's very gratifying. I think it was a good challenge.
Well, we're going to play out with Six of Swords at the end of the show. So make sure we, for those who are listening, make sure we stick around to hear some of that.
Yeah, while we're on the subject, September 24th, you can please tune in. We're doing our first ever acoustic show, which happens to be on the internet. It'll be on notfest.com. It'll be up for a short period of time, but if you RSVP ahead of time, you can like win some stuff. It's totally free. We have some new beer glasses and some new baseball T-shirts that you can win if you just RSVP, or you're just going to get emails remind you to watch. You know, but it's free for anybody, and we
nice.
put a lot of effort into the presentation of it and everything, and we're really, really excited for people to check it out.
You guys writing, doing a new record or something? Is that something in the queue for you guys, or is it going to be kind of?
Yeah, we have.
I don't want to get you to give away the farm, but you got to give some people some stuff, you know.
We have enough for like 3 records, and we're just sort of like sifting through what are we focusing on for this next one. You know, what's going to like give the next record the personality. You know, like what fits together, kind of.
Well, I know a guy that'll check out and listen to riffs, you know, via a Google Drive link if you want to send me anything. You know.
Sure, what's his name?
And fortunately for you, everything I have is in standard tuning, so I can't play it anyway. I couldn't play what you were writing anyway, so let's just put it that way. So your secrets are safe with me if you want to send it my way.
Usually we check the chat. I just wanted to let you know there's a ton of love for you guys in the chat. No questions, unfortunately, but just so you know, there's a ton of love from around the country, which is awesome.
Thanks for watching,
Chicago.
guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys.
Cool.
Thank you guys for doing this with us. Appreciate you thank
you.
having us on.
And it's super cool that we're doing this on a Friday. We started this doing them on Fridays, like when we first did this, and then we switched to Mondays just because it seemed like a little more like something to do on a Monday night. But if you guys are open to it, you know, there will be some more focused kind of calls, right? Like I think we're going to do another guitar kind of call at one point where we're going to bring in a bunch of like, you know, guitar players and stuff. You want to join Nick and John, we're going to probably do something similar with like, you know, singer / you know, vocal stuff. So I think that's kind of where we're going to go in the coming weeks.
Yeah, we want to get into like that. We want to get inside your brains a little bit, you know, like even on this call, I had a whole bunch of gear and guitar questions, but I was like, no, you gotta save it. That's like nerdy stuff that not everybody's interested in, but yeah, we'll get you on for that for sure.
I'm into it. I'm into it. I want to know if actually Trust is a good example. What guitars are on that track, on the tracking of that?
Guitars, cabs.
Well, I know. Well, there's obviously a single coil guitar somewhere in there, or a split something, tapped something, because I feel like
I don't remember.
Sounds like.
No, I mean, honestly, it might be a single coil. A lot of times with the drop A stuff, we'll track a single coil because it just gets all the fucking flubby, like twangy, like grossness of the low string. But I don't particularly remember. I mean, it was definitely my Vigier. The GV this one I've been playing for a long time now, since that tour. Actually, that Thank You Scientist tour was its first tour, and as probably a bunch of other shit. I mean, we used a Strat all over the record, but amp wise, it was definitely my Hiwatt and a Soldano SLO 100 together.
Yeah, nice.
It was usually the Hiwatt in that, or the Hiwatt in a 5150 for each channel, you know.
The
Soldano,
Soldano came out with a newer version of that, right? Doesn't it have like?
I don't know. I don't shop for stuff I can't afford, but they probably did.
You can still look. You could still like, you know, we're talking about, you know, loads and things like that being fired off. I mean, we could still watch on YouTube, right?
That amp was really sick.
They're like so awesome and so nice.
Yeah.
I've been geeking out over them for a while, and I don't even like play guitar well enough to even justify owning any of this. I'm like, oh, I'll get the Soldano. I'll find some some sort of what do you call it for my fractal, the profiling or something.
Emulator, yeah.
You know, like it's the best I'm going to be able to do.
Yeah.
But
some of that stuff sounds great. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not everybody can just drop $4,000 on a head. You know.
someday. Well, the goal is to get it for free, right? I think you guys.
$4,000 on some head.
Nice.
I'm so glad you did it.
I love how Doug chimes in for that.
Yeah.
You're
Right.
still here. Don't worry.
59 minutes in, and he chimes in on $4,000 for some oral.
That's Vegas.
You get what you pay for. So
That's the best you're going to get in town. That's for sure. I don't know how it is in Long Island, but if they're dishing them out at 4K a pop, I'm in the wrong business. But anyway, this definitely is off Facebook. But
Yeah.
all right, guys, listen. Moontooth, thanks so much for jumping on. We really appreciate everything you got going. On the
Absolutely.
24th, you've got an acoustic show on what was the website where you guys are streaming it on?
notfest.com, like Slipknot.
Cool.
Knotfest, notfest.com.
Knotfest.
Knot Fest.
K-N-O-T. Yeah, it'll be on there 6 o'clock Eastern time is when it kicks off.
6
And then
o'clock
we're
Eastern
doing
time.
a Q&A with Knotfest. This dude Bees, who does interviews, and similar to what you do, John did an interview with him. He's going to hang with us and do a Q&A after. And Megadeth sending us some of their beers. So it's a drink while we do the Q&A. So
That's cool.
it's cool. Megadeth beer.
Megadeth beer. So
It's gonna be sick.
the 24th of September, 6 o'clock, notfest.com, an acoustic set with Moontooth, an Q&A after while drinking Megadeth beer. I mean, what more could you want?
Exactly.
We're going to play out with your tune off of Violent Grief, 6 of Swords. Moontooth, thank you guys so much. I'm Dave. That's Jaco. Doug, play us out. Thanks, guys. It's 9 o'clock. Have a great night. Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching.